at SITS 18. I'm delighted to welcome Kevin Smith from Ivanti. Great to meet you at last.
Good to be here.
Good to hear. Just you kindly give me a copy of your latest book, which is here.
I expect you to shamelessly promote that for the next few weeks.
We don't do shameless promotion. We're totally squeaky clean, independent.
Beyond reproach in every respect, no doubt.
Nearly.
Yeah.
So give us a flavour of what you're seeing in that book. What's the future of IT as you see it? And obviously you work with a lot of, because I know you said you used to be with Heat before Ivanti was formed, worked on some really big projects. What have you seen in the last few years that has driven you to write that and to come up with a thesis for where we're heading as an industry?
I like that, the thesis for where we're heading. I think the thing that's amazing about IT is that we've been through this evolution for the last 30 years. When we started, the help desk was born and we started calling these elements of IT what we do today. But largely we do things the same way. But now what we're seeing is this quickening. These amazing forces are colliding to sort of propel IT forward. And I think one thing that's really cool about IT is I'm convinced it's going to become something fundamentally different. In almost every respect, we'll turn IT on its head. We'll keep doing the operational fundamentals, but a lot of people think IT is kind of slow. It's going to become very fast. A lot of people think IT is technology obsessed. It's going to become more business-like. People think IT is very impersonal. It's going to become highly personal. So all these things are going to change before our very eyes. And the amazing thing is we get to be part of that, because this is not going to be another 30 years of evolutionary forces. It's going to be a 5 to 10 year blitz of changing everything we take for granted today.
Well, I mean, that sounds very exciting. And I agree with the main points you're saying. One thing I would say, if I was being the devil's advocate, is we keep hearing things like this all the time about how everything's changing and it's changing fast. And it's,
Yes.
And
then it doesn't.
And then it doesn't. Well, but something else comes along, or some other aspect of change moves. Because there was a discussion a few years ago about that the IT industry might completely just disappear, and we as being part of it in the last 30 years, we've been privileged to see the industry grow and die in our lifetimes. Which is curious. I don't think any of us actually believed that would happen. But are we saying that business is just becoming IT is just becoming another part of business life? Or do we have to rethink what we mean by IT in order to make sure that we don't lose the good stuff, if you like? There's so much drive to do new and shiny and fast, which is great.
Yeah.
But also what we have focused on in the last 30 years is governance, control, ownership of business assets. So how do we square those two things off?
Yeah, it's a great point, because some IT organizations will go away. So they're sort of faced with move into the model we talked about, which is extremely fast, very innovative, highly personal, more strategic, driving those elements, making every experience with IT technology easy. The IT organizations that can move into that model over the next few years then become this new engine for all that is good for the business. Those that can't, they will go away. They'll either be outsourced or I call it sort of fragment into the business. Pieces will move into the different functional elements of the business. So IT's at a crossroads, whether it realizes it or not, and they have this tremendous opportunity to do the things we've talked about for the last 20 years. They pretty much have to happen now, because it's almost impossible to separate any business from technology. You could do it 10 years ago. You could be a great business and not great with technology. It's not possible now. And many organizations are reminded of that. Now, to be a great business, you got to be great with technology. You got to see how your business model leverages technology in a strategic way.
How do we, just bringing it down to IT service management, which is our main focus, I guess, What do you think the differences will be there in that, okay, faster, more personal world, you know, that's more seamless, if you like, the way you described it?
Well, in ITSM, for example, the great kind of micro elements in that, like self-service and service catalog, have had a huge impact on how we do service management. They have, because they are very different in many respects over what we've seen in ITSM before. They're very simple, they're very easy to use, they're available around the clock, they give the user independence. It's no accident that those elements of ITSM have been really successful. High implementation, high deployment success, high value. It's also no coincidence that they're highly automated, because automation is going to change a lot of what we do. So you got those things, easy examples, service catalog, self-service, knowledge maybe. Then you got the big, heavy, more complex processes like change and release. Those processes have struggled more in the past because they were so labor intensive and so complex. Now we have these awesome automation tools. Change management's benefiting from that. We can automate things like approvals, we can capture the workflow around change so everybody knows what that is. So I think it's going to benefit, what we talked about is going to benefit all of ITSM, and more kind of the service catalog and self-service become more of a prototype for how we'll do more and more of everything service delivery.
I mean, one thing, you get some products, and I don't necessarily mean in ITSM, but for example, I could think of a vendor here who does, I think in the US as well, where what they do is provide software for managed service providers, you know, but it's not just that, it's how to run their business as well. Do you think that as an ITSM market vendor, that it's always been a big challenge for me, is how much, to what extent a ITSM vendor is able to really influence the way that their client works, you know, in a positive way.
Yeah, yes.
Because I personally don't feel that enough vendors really invest in that, in the sense that they are ready to go and sell more professional services. Because most organizations do actually need it, one way or another. They might not need very much, but they need some need a lot. And that, my question is a very long-winded question, but just, you know, in the sense that how can, as an ITSM vendor, how can you develop that side of it?
ITSM is a little bit unique in that it is so central to all the actions that happen in IT. So I think it would be fair to describe it as the hub of the wheel in many respects, because service delivery is employing security, employing clients, employing assets, mobilizing assets to take an action to deliver a service. So ITSM's working across kind of facilitating all this and happening. And so I think it's a good model for how we do automation really well, how we unify IT versus letting IT continue to operate in these silos that we love. We're all part of building these silos, but it just becomes too big and too awkward and too slow going forward. It works much better to take all those elements of IT and kind of have them rally around a common goal, like a customer, what we're delivering to the customer. And ITSM is a perfect example of that, because delivering a service, fulfilling a service request, probably touching a lot of those elements, whether it's manual or automated. Automated's even better. So it's a great rallying force that brings IT, unifies IT together to, you know, do something great.
But as a vendor, you know, and we talked a little bit earlier about some of your projects, the successful ones, things like Oxford University, which I know about, and that's seen as being a successful project. What is it that makes a difference to some other projects, maybe the same size, you know, but what do you need to deliver a great project from the client?
It's funny because sometimes, and we'll just talk about ITSM again, I mean, this is certainly true for IT, we tend to want to dive in very quickly and get to the bits and get to roll up our sleeves. it really, really helps to take a step back and have a vision and a strategy for what we're trying to accomplish. And those successful projects almost always have a good plan that is thoughtful and well understood by everybody before we get into deployment. And we tend to rush into deployment as an IT organization, or certainly for ITSM, versus taking some time to invest in that plan and that strategy, because then that's going to govern everything that we do. We know we're on the right course. Without that, we don't necessarily know. We just know we're working hard, not necessarily in the right place.
Yeah, certainly planning and strategy. What about on the people side? I mean, do you look for certain types of skills or competencies or resources, and how do you make sure you've got them if they're not on the terms of reference and when you sign the deal?
Well, it always helps to have bona fide experts, because those content experts are who can help capture the decision making that has to go into that automation or go into the element. We're also, as an industry, we're benefiting from, most teams have done this 2 or 3 times. So it may not be your first go at change management. It's probably your second or third. You're probably not doing incident management for the first time. It's probably not your first service catalog. We've learned a lot in the last 10 years. And I don't want to pick on ITIL, but ITIL is a great example of something with tremendous potential good, but in some cases it was used in a way it was not intended to be used. It was thought to be the savior and not to be a guide. And now we've been using ITIL now for 10 or 15 years. And so we have a lot of great what to do and what not to do clarity around whatever that next project's going to be.
Interesting. So just to sort of round off, what do we need to do as people to meet the new challenges that you sort of laid out?
That's probably the biggest piece, is understanding now process and technology won't get us there. And we've been saying that for a little while. There are people here who have great messages about that. But when it came to what we did, we didn't really live the people culture thing.
Yeah.
Well, now, nothing like failure to bring clarity. Now we've had some failures and understand the people and culture bit is as important, maybe more important than the process and technology, but we can't get to the end result we're all going to be proud of without doing the process and technology side well. Tools here are fantastic, processes are more mature, but for every investment of an hour we put in that, we got to be doing likewise on people and culture.
I mean, I think the whole people thing, I mean, as you say, it is coming out more from more different vendors and organizations. Some of us have been saying it for a long time, that is the important thing. I think it's, as you say, it's difficult for people to listen. They can listen, but they're not hearing, because they're still in that comfort zone of, well, process is fun. I can draw boxes and lines between them, and
well, we kind of
works,
naturally,
yeah.
IT guys naturally gravitate to that. Right?
Yeah.
It's mechanical, it's technical, but the difference, Barclay, I think, is people starting to get it in their heart, and they know. There's a difference when you're aware of something and you fundamentally know, and more of our industries fundamentally know the people and the culture thing is the key. That unlocks the potential of ITSM.
And just ending from that, yes, I mean, it is the most important thing. Do we have the right stuff in terms of the models and tools to help to clarify why those additional things, the soft skills and so on, are important? Is that something that you do in your consulting or implementation work, or is it something that we could do more on as an industry?
Any partnership, so any software solution provider, vendor, if you will, working with a client, that partnership might have some success focusing on process and technology in a limited way, but the partnership to be successful, to work with the clients you think of as the best clients we've ever worked with, that's probably a 10-year thing. That was very much focused on cultural change, management alignment, investing in training, all those things that create success long term, create that successful partnership. So I think any vendor that is going to have a lasting value in this market, we're all going to be focusing more on that element of it, or we're just not going to unlock the value.
Okay, well, it's really interesting stuff. I look forward to reading your book, and
my pleasure.
Hope to see you over here again soon.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, Barkley.
Thank you.